Summary of A Complicated Kindness by Miriam Toews. The story takes place in two different times, when the main character, Nomi Nickel, was young and when she was a teenager in the late 1970s. Nomi is born in East Village, Canada, in a conservative Mennonite village where her parents, Ray and Trudy, have lived their whole lives. Ray is a Mennonite and a middle school teacher. He is very religious, but he is not rude. He loves and admires Trudy, who is warm and outgoing but often breaks Mennonite rules in a way that makes him nervous. Tash, who is Nomi's bigger sister, is bossy but nice. Most of Nomi's life is governed by the rules of Mennonite culture, which seem very old. She can only wear certain clothes, and she can't dance or hug people at school. When she asks to go to the movies, Trudy takes an afternoon to decide if it's okay. Nomi, on the other hand, says that her family life was happy and satisfying. She remembers going to the lake with her parents and sister Tash and how comfortable it was to fall asleep while her mother and sister played cards. She has a close friend named Lids at school, and they walk home together every day. Even when Nomi was a young child, she saw other people in her family questioning Mennonite rules. Trudy doesn't do many of the things that are expected of Mennonite women, like doing chores at the church or giving supplies to missionaries. In this way, she doesn't conform. When Trudy has to watch over babies during church services on Sundays, she unplugs the speaker that sends the lecture into her room and lets Tash listen to American radio stations instead. Mennonite women are supposed to keep their homes clean and tidy, but Trudy is messy and disorganized. She spends most of her time reading, which is looked down upon in her community. Tash's resistance is much more obvious. She always has her radio with her, wears clothes that the church says are wrong, and teaches Nomi about sex and sexuality, which no one else in the community talks about. She tells Nomi to make fun of church leaders like Trudy's brother, the preacher, who they call the Mouth because his sermons are so pompous. But when Nomi was a child, she was a true believer in Mennonite values. She loves playing games in Sunday school where the class tries to kick people out of heaven for sinning, and she can't wait to spend eternity with her family in heaven. One of her biggest worries is that Tash will do so many bad things that she will be sent to hell. As Nomi gets older, Tash is less and less shy about going against church rules. She won't go to church and spends most of her time in her room, burning incense and listening to records. She won't even talk and play with Nomi like she used to. More worrying is that Tash and her boyfriend Ian have started taking library books from the nearest city and reading about philosophy and communism. Nomi knows that these activities are much more dangerous than the clothes Tash wears. Trudy and Ray try to ignore Tash's behavior, hoping it's just a phase. However, it's hard to do so when she starts staying out all night and the Mouth constantly scolds her for not following the rules. Tash finally says that she no longer believes in God and that she and Ian are leaving town. Trudy agrees with her choice and helps her pack clothes and food for her trip. Tash is finally nice to Nomi again, and she gives her younger sister her record collection. Ray, however, is so sad and worried that he won't even say goodbye. After Tash leaves, things at Nomi's house become more random and unstable. Ray and Trudy are both sad, and they both cry a lot during the day. Trudy starts walking around town in her pajamas at night, and her behavior becomes more and more different from what Mennonites expect. Nomi becomes obsessed with the idea that Tash will burn in hell forever, and she thinks every night that her sister is there. One night, Trudy gets tired of having the same nightmares over and over, so she takes Nomi to the Mouth's house and orders the priest to tell her that Tash will be saved. The Mouth won't do it because he's set in his ways, so Trudy gets mad in front of his house and starts swearing and throwing rocks. Shortly after that, Trudy also leaves the family without telling Nomi goodbye. In the future, when Nomi is 16 and living with Ray in the family house, the story changes. Ray has become very uninterested in everything since his wife and daughter left. He lets the house fall apart and leaves Nomi to do the best she can with the cleaning and cooking. Nomi, on the other hand, has lost faith in her religion and taken up Tash's tendency to break with tradition. She wears her sister's clothes and burns her incense. Like Tash, she finds the contradictions and nonsense of life in a very religious community both funny and hard to deal with. Instead of going to church-approved events, Nomi hangs out at a sewage pit where the town's rebellious teens meet to share beer and joints. Here, Nomi meets Travis, a boy her age who has dropped out of high school and is pretending to be a Mennonite pioneer at the town's museum. Nomi and Travis start going out right away because they both like rock music. Travis gets Nomi up almost every night in his truck and drives her around the town's outskirts. They lay naked in the fields, go swimming, or buy weed from the comb, a local drug dealer. Travis wants to have sex, and even though Nomi isn't as sure, she makes an appointment with a doctor to get birth control. But Travis tells Nomi what to do a lot, and they fight a lot, usually because Travis's actions show that he isn't as committed to their relationship as Nomi would like. He talks a lot about running away to Montreal, but he never says if he wants Nomi to come with him. Nomi is smart and creative because she has a good sense of humor, but she is getting worse grades at school because she won't repeat what the Mennonites say. In particular, she often fights with Mr. Queering, who is her English teacher. Mr. Queering makes his students write predictable stories that support traditional ideas. Nomi, on the other hand, writes stories that are hard to follow and often question these ideas. He throws her out of class a lot, which she uses as an excuse to not go to school at all and just walk around town. Nomi's wanderings take her to the sadder parts of town, like the signs that say people will go to hell if they don't follow the church. She also meets people who have been excommunicated by the church but still live in the town even though everyone else is supposed to avoid them. But the walks also bring Nomi and Mrs. Peters, an elderly widow, closer together. Nomi goes to Mrs. Peters' house and helps her with work, and she always makes time to play games with the little girl who lives next door. She also goes to the hospital a lot, where Lids is now stuck because of a long-term illness that hasn't been figured out. Lids is a very religious Mennonite, but she listens to Nomi talk about her relationship with Travis and her plans to have sex without judging or criticizing. The nurses are often uncaring and don't do their jobs, but Nomi takes over, lifting up Lids and doing hard things like washing her hair. When a mean nurse won't give Lids the special food she needs, Nomi throws a can of orange juice at her. The nurse tells Nomi that her mother is just as crazy as she is. Nomi tells the reader that Trudy didn't just leave the community for no reason, but that her brother, the Mouth, kicked her out of the group. Ray is upset that Nomi doesn't go to school, but he never tells her off in a harsh way. Instead, he helps her learn how to drive so she can pass her test. He is getting more and more strange, and he is slowly selling off most of the furniture until the house doesn't have things like a couch or a refrigerator. He also likes to drive around all night for hours. Nomi is worried about her father's health, especially since she can't move to Montreal with Travis if her father can't take care of himself. Nomi and Travis have sex after she gets birth control from a doctor who cares about her. But it's not nearly as sweet as Nomi thought it would be. She's drunk and feeling weak, so she wants Travis to ask her to move to Montreal. When he doesn't, she's upset. In the weeks that follow, Nomi gets addicted to drugs and spends most of her time trying to find money to buy marijuana. Then, Nomi's problems all come to a head in one bad night. She learns that Travis has been cheating on her with Adeline, his fake wife who works at the museum in the village. In order to get back at Travis, Nomi finds his truck parked in front of a hotel where he's having a tryst and lights it on fire. Then, she goes to the hospital to talk to Lids and finds out that her friend has been moved to a psychiatric facility to get shock treatment. Nomi goes to the Combs caravan, where she gets drunk with the drug supplier because she is sad. She passes out, and when she comes to, she's had sex with the comb, but it's never clear if she agreed to it or not. Nomi takes the joint from him and smokes it at the town dump. Here is where Ray finds her. He gives her a muffin and drives her home, but before she can clean up, the Mouth shows up and says that Nomi has been kicked out of the group for starting fires and not following the rules. Ray tells Nomi to go to bed as soon as the Mouth says something. When she wakes up, she finds that he has left her the car and gone for good. In a caring note, he tells Nomi to sell the house and says they'll see each other again in a few years. He ends with a few beautiful Bible lines about how God is always with us and how we can find joy in the future. As she puts away her few things, Nomi is very thankful that Ray saw that he had to leave the town too in order for her to leave. Nomi starts talking directly to Mr. Queering, telling him that she is turning in this story instead of the final task she was supposed to do. She tells the reader that she found some letters from Mr. Queering in Trudy's dresser a few months ago. These letters showed that they were having an affair before Trudy left. The first letters are romantic and passionate, but after Trudy stops the affair, he writes letters threatening to expose her as an adulteress to the whole town. Nomi doesn't care if Trudy stopped the affair because she loved Ray or because she just wanted to leave town. Nomi's story ends with her sitting in her empty room and wondering who I'll become if I leave this town.
About the author. Miriam Toews was born into a very strict Mennonite community in rural Canada, similar to the one her main character Nomi lives in her book A Complicated Kindness. At age 18, Toews left Steinbach to travel the world. She worked for a few years in London and Montreal before going to Winnipeg to get a degree in film studies at the University of Manitoba. She later also got a degree in journalism. Toews's first book, Summer of My Amazing Luck, is about a friendship between two young mothers in a Winnipeg housing project. It was inspired by her work on a radio show about mothers with low incomes. Since then, she has written a number of books, many of which are about how her family left the Mennonite community and dealt with mental illness. She lives in Toronto with her partner and her mother, and she loves watching her two grandkids.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.